Swiftly moving to the final session of the conclave today before we move forward with the awards later. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a real talk. Successful, inspiring stories have always motivated and inspired people in the best way possible. But it's not always that you get to hear about excellence, determination, hard work, some really, really incredible stories right in front of you. Today is that monumental occasion where you actually get to do that, all thanks to this special Real Talk session. We have two very, very inspiring guests joining us over here today. Now, I'll be sharing short bios of both of them. Of course, they don't need an introduction. They're pioneers in the space, but they have deserved every bit of it. Our first guest today, ladies and gentlemen, he's an architect practicing at Mysore and Bangalore for the last 4 decades. As a researcher, he has published on habitat studies, development planning, housing, and architecture, resulting in 5 books on human settlement policies in Asia to his credit, besides several research papers. His architectural works are sensitive to the environment and have been innovative too, and has led several habitat policy research projects. Ladies and gentlemen, absolutely no brownie points for guessing. I'm talking about B. Shashi Bhooshan, sir, over here. Can we please all clap and appreciate his presence as I... Thank you so much, sir. Shukriya. Pleasure to have you over here. Pleasure. Please take your seat. I think over there, in the middle. Thank you so much, sir. Give him a bigger round of applause, please, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Our next guest, wow, what to say? As the managing partner, Venkataramanan Associates, a multidisciplinary award-winning architecture firm based in Bangalore, steeped in values of design quality, integrity, commitment, and ethics, has held a steady reputation for the design of benchmark projects across typologies since the year 1969. He has also founded the MOD Institute, an action-oriented think tank addressing highly relevant urban design issues. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about the one and only Naresh V. Narasimhan, sir, managing associates. Please give it up for sir, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody over here, make some noise, please. Thank you so much, sir. Honor and privilege to have you. Thank you. Yes, sir, please. And of course, we always talk a lot about our guests, but then our in-house superstars did action as well. She's also an architect by profession, a media person by choice. She is an active architectural practice for more than a decade, forayed in the field of architectural journalism in the year 2006, and now manages editorial content and products at none other than, of course, Realty Plus. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for Sapna Srivastava. Always walking with a lot of swag, creating impact with her work. Sapna ke liye everybody zor se bajaiye taali, please. Thank you. Perfect blend of architecture, success stories. Please, yeah, I believe so. Is it not? It is. The money would have been deducted otherwise.
Thank you everyone. We had one exhilarating day today. We spoke about innovation and co-creation with design. We spoke about rebooting cities. We spoke about the business of design. And now it's my privilege to be here with the design gurus and know their candid thoughts. So let's keep it very candid. Let me first of all ask you, you've been in the industry, both of you, for so many years. And everyone here has their own definition of architecture. Everyone have their own perception of what architecture is. Let me ask you both. According to you, what defines architecture? Mr. Bhushan, let's start with you.
We have started hearing this definition from day one in architectural schools. And we keep on getting these definitions. Very little change, but hardly. But after so many years of life, not necessarily practicing, I know that architecture doesn't mean same thing to any two people.
Okay.
So you can have as many different definitions of it. But theoretically, or as intellectually as architects would like to believe, I would say that architecture is fundamentally a purposeful tool to live with, fundamentally. And that happens to be so even for some animals as well. Even the very lowly creatures like, lowly in quotes, like ants and bees and wasps and or many other. But there is a difference I feel that is that of emotions. And to make architecture as signs and symbols denoting something else, denoting those emotions. And these emotions starts coming to us as intelligent beings, within again quotes, uh, when we have enough to live. Only when we are slightly above the brute survival. Until then, perhaps none of these matters. And after that, these emotions can come to various forms, which includes all our senses, all our emotional needs, and then that also means survival needs above the creature comforts, and then seeking pleasure, and then seeking power. And that is where politics comes as a big force in architecture.
Yes. A lot of our
So,
panelists spoke
yeah,
about that earlier.
yeah, I have one more thing to add. As architects, we think to practice, think that architecture is something, or at least we try to claim that we have a vision to change the world. Okay? And we have been told that you are the great visionaries and you can change the entire world. But when you practice, you know that you have very little capability and you have very little uh, capacity to change even your client. Okay? That is the reality.
That's the reality of life.
Yes.
Yeah, but you rightly said, a lot of people say architecture is art and science. But
Yeah.
more than that, it is about emotions. What Mr. Bhushan said, it is about emotions of power, safety, comfort, pleasure. And architecture is fundamental to not only human beings, but also animals and
Yeah.
other living beings. Mr. Narasimhan, what's your
I,
definition
I
of architecture?
well, I would think that more than a definition, it's what we do in daily life. I think defines architects. I think architects start with an intangible, a set of intangibles,
Correct.
and your job is somehow to make them tangible, and hope that the end result also again becomes intangible. Right? So all the stuff both Shashi spoke about and what you spoke about, basically you're putting together a set of volumes in some sequence in any building project. But the net effect of it is not just a functional output of that, but it creates all these emotions which are intangible. You can't touch an emotion.
Right.
You can only feel it.
Right.
So I think architects do that. They go from the intangible to the tangible, and the end result, if they're any good at it, becomes intangible.
Okay. Turning dreams into reality of
Not
the
really that.
clients.
Every
Yeah.
space affects you differently. I mean, like every piece of food that you eat, you don't pay attention, but anything you eat also physiological change.
Right.
If
Right.
you are aware, you will understand what happens
Right.
if we eat too much sugar or too much cake
Right.
or whatever. You
Right.
don't feel good, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
similarly, I think architecture has that power also to make you feel something, and that's an intangible thing. So, if you are able to pull that off,
Correct.
if you
So,
make it feel comfortable, or if you,
correct.
it depends on the environment. If it's a school, what would you do to make the children? What do children like to feel? Or if it's a corporate office, then what? Whatever it is.
Correct. Correct. So, as Mr. Narasimhan said, it is turning intangible into tangible, which impacts you in different ways. And every person will have their own experience out of that tangible. Now, another thing a lot of people are talking about these days is globalization. The good part of globalization is that you get to learn from different continents, different people, different communities, different culture. But probably a disadvantage is losing your own cultural identity. So, how much is too much when we talk about globalization? Let me start with you, Mr. Narasimhan.
I don't think we have much of a choice at this point. I mean, and architects probably have the least agency of anybody involved in this to make any great difference whether we like globalization or not. It's a phenomenon which is not going away anytime soon. I think the important thing is to retain some, what I would call, sense of cultural as well as climatic values in whatever environment you're doing buildings in. I'm speaking very generally, of course, but I think slavishly copying something from somewhere or doing cut and paste architecture. A lot of India you'll see is the C&P, I call it, cut and paste from somewhere else. Right? So I think it's important to be sensitive to both climate and to local culture when you do a project of any kind. So I don't think we can avoid being globalized. I think that's too late. The horses have already
Being more
fled.
common sense using it. I
Not
think.
just common sense. It's mostly. I mean, in a city like Bangalore, which has a temperate climate, it's not that difficult. But in the rest of India, I think which have extremes of weather, putting all what do you call it, huge sheets of glass everywhere, and doing all. I mean, hermetically sealed buildings which have no connection with the environment at all. I think these are all things, trends that are unfortunately come to us because of this globalization. But I think there is a pushback now in India now, saying that we have our own style, we know what to do. And buildings are also changing slowly, not as fast as they should, but it is changing.
Okay, at least some changes happening. Mr. Bhushan, what do you have to say? Are we on the right path? Things are changing for the better?
Yeah, no, I don't have anything to say on this. Okay, I agree with that.
Acha.
But I don't feel that the question that there is a globalist approach. There is a globalized approach. I don't think there is one. That is, it is not an approach. There is inevitable thing, as he says. It's like the economics, the finances, the idea of power again coming from somewhere else, and because we don't have our own thing, it came. But I don't feel that there are as much bad impacts because it is something which is passing. It will keep changing every 50 years. Some of the things doesn't even stay as much as 50 years. Okay, 20 years or 10 years. Then another wave comes. So we don't have to really worry about that. I don't feel that. When we are, as he has said, when we are as a group, we are solid enough in our own thinking, none of those matters. And even if it matters, I would say that many ideas which comes from, especially the one of the things that is exported is not only materials and technology, but the concepts which are not necessarily very good for our concepts and theories. Okay. But again, all those will pass. And many of the things like the idea about glass and the idea of materials, aluminium or whatever it is, all of them there is a particular context in which they will be useful or not. But the way we are using it, the way we use from one city to another, one culture to another, one region to another region, it changes. Because we have a way of corrupting it. Any idea which is copied and they copied again, third time it changed. So this is, I am not looking at architecture as individual creations. It is a creation of the society as well over a period of time. That keeps changing. It changes spatially as well. If you look at our traditions, if you look at the basic houses, which were, say, about 50-year-old. Now there are many 50-year-old houses are gone in cities. But if you look at the villages, you start from Kerala, south end to north end, you will find every 50 kilometers, there will be a different inform using tile roof. Here itself, I have found that some 30 years ago, I used to travel very regularly from Mysuru to Hassan, and I will find the roof forms changes every 20 kilometers. Okay, and that is how the house forms also changes spatially as well as temporarily.
Correct.
So this is something to tell that it is, I mean, the basis on which I am telling that globalization is not a big deal in architecture. And certain things like densities or densities and response to that densities, which is a function of land values, again, function of economics, function of finances, and how the society is structured economically, all that matters. So when that changes, things do changes, and especially because the response to these technologies which has come in response to that in those countries, they come now.
Correct.
And we have something more to add to that, perhaps they will accept it.
Correct. So as our, experts here say, change is the only constant change has to happen. Mr. Bhushan said every kilometers the change happens. Naresh Narasimhan mentioned globalization is not a bad thing, but how do you use it? How do you use the concepts correctly in the context is what is required from our architects. Now, we had another session where we spoke about social media and probably how social media is taking, design industry, bringing design industry closer to people. What are your views? A lot of time we see that people do not realize that how architecture impacts them, their day-to-day life. People do not, unconsciously it is impacting us, but we do not realize it. How do we bring people and architecture together? Let's not keep it intellectual level, let's bring it to the masses. No. How do we do that?
No, architects have a exaggerated view of their own importance. Like I ask everybody in Bangalore now, first of all, there's no such thing called social media, okay? It's only media, and now the media has changed into something else. What we used to read in a printed word, now we see on a computer or a phone screen. There's no point saying social media. Okay, that media. Is media, yes. Period. Okay, there's nothing else. All print and all is going out very, very fast. I know you publish a magazine, but even then, right, it's going away very fast. But, but one thing I cannot understand, and for many years I've always struggled with, is that some guy who writes a book, a fiction book, will sell 2,000 copies. The whole country will know about him. Or a little more than that maybe. And if I ask people here, name 5 authors, everybody will know. Somebody at least, even in the age of nobody reading books. And on social media, for instance, if you take Instagram, if you look at any Bangalore picture, everybody will post picture of T2 terminal. It's the most used image on, it pops up almost every day. And everybody is going somewhere or coming somewhere, and they feel compelled to take one picture of this bamboo stuff with some plants hanging, saying, oh, so cool and all. And I keep replying to some of them whom I know. I said, who is the architect? And let me ask this room, and maybe not the senior people who might know, who is the architect of T2? See, only we know. Ask any of your friends who are not architects, nobody will know in the city, right? At all. But if I take you back in history, and whether you like the building or you don't like the building, who is the architect of Vidhan Saudha? Does anybody know? Huh? No, Jaisim is not allowed to answer. No, but this is really strange. And you forget about Bangalore, you take anything in India, we think we are the guys who made it all, we came up with a great idea, we sold a song, did some concept, made the client spend some money, got it done. And in the end, when you go for the inauguration function, you are the 92nd guy to be felicitated. The last guy in the room, they'll call you and, architect, that fellow is also there somewhere in the back kind of thing. Till that day, you are the guy in front getting it done. Right? And I do not know why architects themselves do not address this. Anybody who makes a rotten film, right, even if it's, an average film, everybody knows who that person is. Have you noticed? Even among architects, how many times have you wondered when you look at Indian buildings. Who did that? And people, even architects themselves are curiously incurious. So I always find, and unless that changes from our own thinking, that the architecture, if you go abroad, and the situation is exactly the reverse. I travel extensively all over the place, not so much in America, but in Europe. Every common guy there, I mean, who is not an architect, knows who is the architect of the important buildings in their cities. I mean, I don't know whether you have noticed that also. All of you travel a lot. Why is it that they have somehow got a place of, and that is the reason they get 6 to 8% fee, and that's why we only get 1 or 2%. Because the role is diminished here. And somebody else, I think Kavita mentioned it, or on an earlier panel discussion, I think Ponni mentioned it, right? You work for these government guys.
Yeah.
That's the worst of them all. Like, you'll be one slightly, I think you'll be in the level of people controlling that project, you're just above the security guard. That's your physical position. I work for government a lot. And you are nowhere in the picture. Nobody even.
That's a sad truth, actually.
And funnily enough, we think of what it's going to be. We know what the developer is going to do before even the developer knows what he's going to do. We know whatever we build, we know what we are going, eventually will be done. But that idea is, so I think the mistake that is happening, I'm going on for too long, I'll just stop here. But the mistake that's happening is that if I ask you all in the room, who are the top 4 management consultants in India? Just tell me. You all know, right? Who are they?
EY, KPMG.
You know it. EY, KPMG. Why do you know?
PwC.
Have they affected your life in any way? Have you ever dealt with EY, KPMG and PwC in your life? Why do you know? Why do you know who is McKinsey? And nobody walks into a McKinsey office and says, I want to meet Mr. McKinsey. They all come into Venkataramanan office and ask, I want to meet Venkataramanan. How did they achieve this level of size? McKinsey makes about $3 billion in fees every year. Yeah, even worse. I thought, yeah. For what? And why are they well known? None of us in this room deal with them. And we somehow think we are the most important person in the room. It's clearly a failure of branding. It's clearly a failure of positioning. And it is affecting you daily because McKinsey, in a recent job that we worked in, we go into a presentation and the only other 2 guys in the room is PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, and McKinsey to present. So I asked them, what are you doing here? And this is an architectural presentation. And that guy says, it's a consultancy, right? We'll take the job and maybe we'll outsource it to you. They're presenting against me in an architect. So if you don't act, this is going to get worse. And I think forums like yours and many other forums, we should really stop worrying about whether this Council of Architecture is an outdated idea. The Indian Institute of Architects is stuck in internal politics. It needs a new grouping now of people who understand the value of branding, the value of positioning, the value of how to become the top of the Maslowian pyramid rather than sitting in the middle.
Correct. A lot of changes required, as Mr. Narasimhan said, as at an industry level, I think. At the industry level, the changes are required. Mr. Bhushan, what do you have to add to that?
I don't know what is the question now.
Why are architects not in social media?
The question is, how do we connect people and architecture?
People and architecture, that is the question actually.
Yeah. How do we connect? We bring them together.
Yes, but without people there is no architecture.
But they don't
Yes,
know you're the
yes.
architect.
They don't, that's a secondary question. We are asking that question. We raised that question because we are architects and we only can design buildings. That is not true. That was not true ever. And even in Europe, maybe there is a time when nobody knew who were the architects except 1 or 2 people here and there, like painters. How many painters of India were there earlier? How many sculptors? We know the name. Not only architecture. We don't know. And that is the culture of this country. Culture of not only this country, China as well. China has no architects before. And Korea doesn't have it. And it is most of the Eastern cultures don't have that sense of architecture. Architecture is a social code which artisans build according to that code. That is how all these cultures were developed. And even Kerala, for example, had its own code of building, carpentry-based architecture. And similar things in Nepal, and in states like Rajasthan, they have their own code. It is the women who make it. And Africa, even now, it is the women who make architectural.
No, that's more artisanal.
Yeah, so,
no?
you know, Naresh, I agree with you on one aspect of it. The architecture which sells to the emotional, powerful part of the thing where money is, the elitist part of it, which is the larger, the upper part of the pyramid. That part, architects has to project themselves, and it is like consultant, management consultant. They sit above any production manager, and even the industries are no important. The consultant become more important. That's a different story altogether. So, if it is that kind of architecture, yes, there is. So, when people are building for the power, that person is known. Even here, even he is not known so much for the money he makes, but he is close to the power, he is known. Albert Speer is known, not because he made money, but because very close to Hitler. Okay, so it is a power game, and architecture was used as a power game always, and it is a symbol of power. And even at a lower level, even in making habitat, individual houses, people build it for status seekers and to show their wealth, show their power, they make it. And every politician in a village and every politician in a local town, he wants to see that his house looks more like a public thing. So money may not be there. He will cheat, or he will get you into a corrupt situation and try to get the best out of you. And he will not even pay the fees. Okay? So the power always, political power is over and above everything. And that the American election has very clearly established that, the recent election. Okay, money is everything.
Correct.
So that I don't buy it, because my definition is based on the basic value of habitat architecture, which is required across the spectrum of how much money you have, how much of power you have, how much of what kind of life you have. And informal settlements, where slums, or you call it squatter settlements, they are also architecture for me. It is a creative thing. People do it, but in their own level. But they are not, you cannot completely say that they are not architecture, and we see them only as a land. Then we have a different approach to it. So that is where it happens that for a long time, the people have been trying to remove the Dharavi, and they are not successful.
Correct. Because
yeah.
we are not connecting it with the people.
Yes, it is not connecting to the people.
Yeah.
So that is what my take is, that people in that level. Okay, the stakeholders, who are the stakeholders? That fundamentally it matters that.
Correct. Complex
And
question.
finally,
Yeah, I think.
the idea of architect as a maverick designer, artist is gone. I think almost gone at least. Now, if at all, the big names which we talk about all over the world and even in India, the big names are teamwork. It is a group of people. They are not just one person. It's a group of people, and it is always has been teamwork. And that teamwork, to me, it goes down to the person who is working on the site.
Correct.
But we don't even talk about that.
Correct. So, what you used to be architect is the master of the ship, is no more the concept. It is more about teamwork, as Mr. Shashi Bhooshan said, and as architect Narasimhan said, it is more about recognizing the creator, which is not happening. And I think, as Bhushan said, it's more like an Asian concept, because in China and Asia, other countries also not happening. Let me close this session on a little candid questions, little informal and questions. Is both of you, what is it that you like the most about your work and hate the most about your work? What you like the most about your work and hate the most about your work?
Not a one with strong hates and
Okay,
dislikes and likes and dislikes, but nowadays I enjoy putting together the design strategy more than rather than drawing the drawings myself. How to put together a complex brief.
Okay.
Simplicity bores me. So,
okay, all right.
so
And what you don't like about your work?
that the entire construction ecosystem in India is completely broken. So instead of designing for the highest common factor, which we should be doing, we are designing for the lowest common denominator. How to, what is the point saying Revit and, some desperate BIM and this and that? That fellow on that construction guy on the site, if he has to lay out a column grid, he says 2D drawing there though, first. He doesn't care about your 3D model and clash detection and full colorful stuff and all that. So the gap between technology and the gap between physical knowledge of how to execute. And I think that's a fundamental mistake India has made. Take the parallel of the hammer together by hand. After 2 weeks after you bought it, things will start rattling. Nothing works properly, and it's always a disappointment. In 10 years, look at the speed of transformation. The automobile industry took action, right? And said that this cannot go on. We cannot be building vehicles by hand. And do you know that every Camry in the entire Toyota Camry in the entire planet comes out of Bangalore? How is it possible that a bunch of guys, the same bunch of workers, blue collar, how did they do it? So it's a very clever, I actually sat and did some research on that, saying, how did the car industry go from providing,
Basic.
dabba wagons, dabba cars to the most sophisticated car built in the world? How is it coming out? So what they did was they took over these ITIs. The government of India in the 1950s set up these industrial training institutes, which were training all these people in industrial trades. So the Automobile Association of India took over that training program, and in less than 10 years brought in the best of the world's technology, including the quality control, all the Deming processes and all that, which produce cars in an assembly line. And in 10 years, they've managed to change the perception of an Indian-made car. And if you see the launch yesterday of the Mahindra EV series, look at that styling. It looks better than a Tesla. And the quality of it, even on a video, you can tell that it's very... So why is it... Okay, if you take the analogy back to architecture, a car is a moving room, right? A car is 5 feet by 8 feet. You sit in it and it has an extra engine. It has windows which go up, open and close. It has air conditioning. It has electrical system. It's exactly like a room which moves around a place. How is it that we can get that quality of finish there? And when you go to buy a car, it's like buying a television today, right? People don't even go to a shop to buy a television. You press one button on Amazon and the television comes without even looking at it. Try imagining buying an apartment in India without looking at it. Will you buy an apartment online? Very, very unlikely. You will never buy real estate. You will never trust what they do. And even after you bought it, you still feel shortchanged when you occupy the place. I've never seen anybody 100%. But how is it it's possible with consumer products? How is it possible with automobiles? So the trouble is, I think our industry is extraordinarily fragmented, and architects think they're in some ivory tower. The construction industry thinks that we don't matter. The project managers think they actually are the kings. And the real estate guys know that they are the true bosses. So nobody, wants to change the delivery unless we all come together and say, no, in 10 years from now, our building quality has to go back to whatever, India suffered a fatal blow in the late 70s. If you see all the buildings till the late 70s built in India, the quality of construction built in the 20th century, and even in Bangalore, you have examples like that old Canara Bank building opposite Cash Pharmacy. You see the quality of the stonework, you see the quality of the execution, outstanding. Suddenly, you see this decline in the mid 80s, and it starts really becoming bad towards the late 90s. You know why? Everybody in the late 70s ran off to Gulf. And it was the government never instituted a skill development, a building skills development institute as a vocational training like they did for the mechanical trades. Everybody archery taught the student. With the archery you take and push off, these guys have gone and built Dubai. The same guys who should have built India. And the government till today has not acted on this to create we have a National Skill Development Corporation, but nobody teaches, forget about even skilled tasks. You look at a guy using a JCB excavator. The fellow has no clue how to operate that machine, how to do it efficiently. There's no way, there's no course to teach him how to do it. They all learn on the job.
That's true.
So unless this paradigm changes that is the most disappointing thing about this field. The deadliest thing you'll draw, concept, this, that.
Fragmented. The
And
keyword
the
that I think is
end quality is terrible.
it is fragmented, and that's why the quality issues. We do not have the right people or the teachers to
The
have the skill.
artisans are all gone now. It's all gone.
Let me end with Mr. Bhushan this conversation. What is your message to the people who are sitting here, the designers, the architects, the entire fraternity? What is your message?
I have absolutely no message to the people who are sitting here because they are always, all of them have messages to tell others. And I am not a person who want to sermonize my views to others. So I don't have any message like that. And I don't even have message to my own just generation because they will know better than what they can do with their lives than I know it. That is my, I don't even tell my student, my children, that you do this or you do that. It is their way.
They won't listen.
So they won't. That is why both of them are architects. They don't come and work with me. Okay. That is. I did not make them to build upon me. Okay. I end with me. That's all. Because that is gone. That time is
Let
gone.
them come with new ideas.
Yes, that's the entire thing is that the new challenge is not individual architects. It's a teamwork. But as he said correctly, if you want to do that kind of architecture, then it is built on professional organization, not professional individuals.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And that is the more important thing. And I find that it is not true that every industry can replicate what has happened in car industry. In many other industries, it has not replicated. The car industry is something growing, and also it is growing because of not mass production, but change of the whole technological system. That the cost of the car for the last 20 years has not gone up astronomically higher because they employ less and less people within that. But at the same time, automobile industries employs a whole lot of people elsewhere, okay, on the sales side and on the maintenance and many other things. So this monetary system or the economic system that it has created has caught up, mainly because our roads are bad and also mainly because the public transport is unspeakable and there is no good trains even, and now we have good roads, but our cars are not good for those roads. So that is also the situation.
Right.
So there is a mismatch in everything, and there is a mismatch in architecture also. See, architecture has, or anybody who works with hand or works with their brains, and if you sincerely put work on that, there is always stumbling blocks. And you overcome that, you work for whether it is a writer, whether it is a musician, whether it is anybody for that matter. And that kind of amount of work you put it in, it will not be, there is a mismatch between the money you get and the effort you put in. But still people were putting in the effort because they get something out of it.
Correct.
That is the delight of doing it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
it.
Yeah, I think architects have that delight, as you said, of creating something. Although, as Naresh
No,
said,
I don't call it the creation.
Okay.
Creation, even cooking is also creation.
Okay.
Okay, it is.
Okay,
So
great.
you can't belittle anything. And I find my fabricator who did that, which I showed you, the kind of
correct.
shells which we
Yeah.
creating, and the fabricator who is less than 7 standards guy, he is as much creative.
That's it. I think the takeaway from this conversation is that the industry is fragmented. A lot more needs to be done, as Naresh said, at the individual level, at the industry level. But I think a lot of changes are happening, as Bhushan said. Change is what is constant, and as long as we are moving in the right direction, and the entire design fraternity is here, we are talking about subjects, we are talking about the challenges. I think that's the right step in the right direction as long as we are talking about it. So thank you so much, Architect Bhushan, for being here with us, and Architect Narasimhan for being here with us and sharing your candid thoughts with us. Thank you so much. It was nice talking to you.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Please give them a big round of applause. I request Sapna to kindly please hand over the token of appreciation to both of them, please. And एक टाइम पे रास्ते अच्छे थे, गाड़ी अच्छे नहीं थे. अभी गाड़ी अच्छे है, लेकिन roads उतने अच्छे नहीं है. लेकिन sir spoke about mismatch. There shouldn't be any mismatch in terms of love shown to them. They've been really, really wonderful in terms of the session. So can you please show some more love over here, everybody in this room. Let's match up with the brilliance that they have. Thank you so much. We'll do a nice photo with all three of you together. Thank you so much.